Welcome back, Zerk fans, to Nanolades at Dawn, the June 2006 1v1 tournament. I am your host, or remain your host, ShadowFury333, and we are into the losers finals, SnuggleBass versus Orfelius. Although Orfelius hopefully will get to this quickly, because apparently they have to leave in 40 minutes, and that would kind of suck if they got to grand finals and then had to leave. But we're starting on Tandem Crater, so back to this map, this whole thing, because that's the map we're on. SnuggleBass back at the southwest, going for light vehicles. Orfelius in the northeast, and no clue what they're going to go for. But this is going to be interesting. I don't think I've seen a player other than Google Frog and somebody on this map. I've maybe done it? I have no idea. Nope. Google Frog versus Capricious is the only game I've casted prior to this tournament on this map. That was it. So Orfelius and SnuggleBass, first game I've seen on this map that does not involve Google Frog, and both players going for the light vehicle factory. And Google Frog is right. They did play Cookie versus Vehicle. They built about 70 glaives. That was what it was. Yeah, 70 glaives. That's what they had. There's a lot of glaives. And now Orfelius going for Dart. SnuggleBass also going for Dart. But yeah, this map is tricky just because, for one thing, with vehicles especially, you can't go down to the craters without the commander. Both players, of course, going for the recon commander to be able to jump down to the craters. And also, light vehicles can't go up here, which is one of the things that bots can take huge advantage of, is this entire area up here. That whole race, this race section, that's not vehicle pathable. That's bot pathable only. And the craters, of course, the low, not the really deep one, but the shallower one is bot pathable again. So bots have a lot of advantages on this map. The disadvantage they have, of course, is the usual one, which is speed. They cannot very rapidly get across the map, and so they are not often played. Although, admittedly, one of the reasons I would see that Cloaky would be played is glaives are really fast. They're remarkably fast. They're, I think, a bit faster than Scorchers, actually, like 130 Elmo per second or something. They're really speedy. So they can actually work okay on this map. The problem, of course, being that it's only glaives. The rest of the Cloaky bot factory is remarkably slow. But on the upside, you do have glaives and other bots, so it's viable, sort of. With vehicles, everything's relatively quick, but the downside is that you don't get to the craters without using your commander or using an additional factory. But either way, you basically only have the one shot. So if you lose your commander, that's actually a huge blow, because that's like 10 metal per second you cannot get. Unless you get another factory. Especially at this stage in the game, it'd be huge. So Orfelius right now going straight to the top crater. SnuggleBass also going straight to the bottom crater. And Orfelius with... Sorry, not Orfelius. SnuggleBass with a bunch of Scorchers over to the north side. Actually, are they going to intercept the commander? I don't think they're fast. No, they're not fast enough. The commander will be able to go in, no problem. So that should not be an issue. But SnuggleBass not really under anywhere near an analogous threat. Is SnuggleBass aware of the commander position? No, they're not. They're just kind of looking around. They might find it too. Orfelius' commander will, of course, just jump into the pit if it has to. But that's still... Actually, he's going to jump in the pit anyway, so it's not a big deal. But still, that's a lot of pressure, not to the commander, but to the main base. And the fact that Orfelius now has to deal with all these Scorchers with one fewer Scorcher of their own. Oh, did Orfelius idle factory again? They keep doing that. I don't know why Orfelius keeps doing that. I mean, I mentioned it to some of the newer players. It was either... I think it was both Tuna and Firestar that I mentioned it to. That's like, you gotta just have repeat build. If you're not sure, just have repeat build. But Orfelius is not doing that. I don't know why they're not doing that, because it would help them a lot. They would have probably won a couple games had they the units they would have had if they had actually produced stuff and not left their factory idle, like it is right now. I don't know why it's idle. At SnuggleBass, they're pressuring really hard. They already had the entire south side. Getting some energy there too, because why not? Orfelius is a bit slower in getting the north side. And SnuggleBass trying to find a good position to harass from. Fortunately for Orfelius, there aren't. Orfelius does have enough units that SnuggleBass is not quite so intrepid. They can't be quite so easily harassing everything. It's a little bit more effort. And SnuggleBass really needs to fall back now. They really need to fall back a little bit earlier, in fact. They've lost 2 more Scorchers than they really had to. I'm pretty sure they know the numbers. Pretty sure they knew that Orfelius had 5, so SnuggleBass was gambling a little bit and lost. However, SnuggleBass is still ahead economically, does still have a lot of Scorchers. Are the commanders upgraded? No. Both commanders are unupgraded. They're both level 1, so no change there. But yeah, Orfelius not as far economically, and SnuggleBass just trying to find places to harass. Problem though is that SnuggleBass is starting to get their army split up, where Orfelius is keeping their army together, so local advantage is starting to go in Orfelius' favor. If they would actually start building stuff, because apparently they're really tired and not building stuff. I don't know, maybe they're tired. I know SnuggleBass is tired, but Orfelius, like, it should be, what, 6 p.m., I think, for them? Maybe? Not totally sure. I think it is. Anyway, that's not terribly late, I guess. Still kind of late. I mean, I guess it's exhausting because it's been a long tournament. It has been several hours. 5.5 to be precise. But even then, it's... I don't know. Just the fact that it's not just now. It's been the whole time. They just haven't been building when they could have been. Yeah, and Google Frog, I'm agreeing with Google Frog. Why not just repeat Scorcher? Like, the only reason you don't want to repeat is because you're saving for something else. Like, you're trying to burst build something else. That's the only reason. And I know a lot of old schoolers, a lot of old school TA players will just go for this thing where they're building 5 or 20 or 100 units rather than repeat build. I mean, I guess it's an old school habit. I don't know that Orfelius is a super old school player, though. I thought they were pretty much a spring player. But maybe it's also old school spring engine stuff. I don't know. Repeat build still is the way to go most of the time. There are very few occasions where you don't want to. And while Orfelius is at the skill level where they have encountered and know the occasions where that's the case, they seem to be just falling on, well, I'll just pay attention manually. I'm not going to repeat build, I'll do it manually, and that's not working. And it's getting them behind militarily. At this point, SnuggleBass, they're not that far ahead yet, but they will be fairly soon. And Orfelius just falling further and further behind. That's the thing. Orfelius is going to fall further and further behind. And even if they win engagements, Orfelius is still going to have a harder time keeping up. And SnuggleBass, it almost feels like they're trying to figure out where to go. They don't actually know where Orfelius is. Orfelius, likewise... Actually, no, Orfelius does know. Orfelius does see what's going on. They know where SnuggleBass is. Orfelius knows SnuggleBass is going to the north. SnuggleBass does not know where Orfelius is going to the south, but at the same time, SnuggleBass also taking the south pretty much with impunity. Oh, except this radar is going to be done, and when that happens, then Orfelius is going to know exactly what's going on. Because it'll be super obvious since I think the metal... No, the metal won't be obvious, but still, it'll be obvious. Oh, hey, there's something down southeast of me. SnuggleBass went for the south crater. Because that's what would happen. But it looks like SnuggleBass is going to be able to get away with this. Orfelius not going for it. Much more focused on SnuggleBass's attack force, which Orfelius should be able to deal with. SnuggleBass routing that force, not really worried about it too much. Or not routing it, retreating that force. Not really going to let that commit suicide, which is a wise idea. Orfelius, of course, the problem is they want to keep the territory, but they're also behind enemy lines at this point. SnuggleBass can just go north and really slow down Orfelius. Not kill them, not kill their commander, but just slow it down. Get rid of the shield blast factory. Oh, never mind, there's roaches. Actually, mind, because the roaches are not going to do that much good. Oh, nope, not much good. 1 Scorcher is 130 metal for 160 metal of roach. It's not really that valuable. When you consider that roaches die and then can't do anything, it's like, yeah, that should hit 2. So good dodging by SnuggleBass. It really made sure the roach didn't totally pay off. But yeah, SnuggleBass coming in on all sides. At this point, I'm actually kind of impressed that Orfelius still has a relatively strong economy and isn't too far behind, considering that Orfelius has basically nothing compared to SnuggleBass. SnuggleBass has the entire South Crater area and the 2 above ground or 2 high ground expansions next to it, and is pretty much taking the other side of the crater. And Orfelius only has these extra 7.5 metal per second expansion sets for that one North Crater. That's it. That's all they got. Vulture for SnuggleBass, and Orfelius going in for, yeah, the Proxy Shield Block Factory, we saw that already, and Airplane Factory for SnuggleBass for the scouting, so SnuggleBass knows exactly what's going on. And I think this is going to be the thing that'll turn the game around, is that SnuggleBass will know where to attack, when to attack, what's going on. Like, SnuggleBass now has a lot of knowledge. And the Vulture over to the south as well, which will help out a lot. Because at this point, up to this point I should say, SnuggleBass hasn't really been on track for keeping track of what's going on. They've sort of been, but not really. Now they have vultures everywhere, and while Orfelius does know, oh, hey, whoops, I gotta deal with air, gotta get some anti-air, getting some crashes out, actually, for that purpose, they're still having to deal with the fact that now they're completely exposed. Like, Orfelius is kind of going for the attack because they almost kind of have to, but unfortunately, into the Stardust, that's not what they want to do. They want to go south. I mean, they didn't know the Stardust was there. Not a bad reaction to get out of there. Still kind of tricky, though, because Orfelius is really relying on good reactions and good tactics just due to the lack of economy and lack of units. And unfortunately, there's only so far those things can go. This is... I don't know. This is not working out well for SnuggleBass. For Orfelius. This is working really well for SnuggleBass. For Orfelius, it's not so much. However, this is only game 1, so there's still potentially two more games. And Orfelius hasn't lost yet. They're kind of against the wall. They have a lot of pressure right now. And with the Napalm Bomber, the Phoenix that I think is out. Yeah, Phoenix is out. Thunderbird's coming out afterwards. This is going to be problematic. I mean, it's not totally problematic, because SnuggleBass is still not entirely winning. But SnuggleBass has the air advantage. The Crashers haven't really come into position yet. The Thugs are doing a good job, though. And even the Phoenix is going to do some damage, but not a huge amount. Orfelius' commander being a bit too recklessly brave, but still able to get out of there. Problem, however, the Crashers were not in position. Now they are in position, which will help. The next time the Napalm or Phoenix or Thunderbird comes in, that should end it. What is ARC? I don't know what that is. Anyway. Apparently something American, so I have no idea. At any rate, SnuggleBass not quite able to make that final push. Still does have a good vantage point from the southeast, which for some reason Orfelius has not seen fit to get rid of. Oh, wow, that was a dodge or a miss. Just drove right past it. Not even going to worry about the Phoenix. Drive right past it, don't get hit. I mean, this is not good. I'm trying to think what to say about this, but really it's just, I don't know, because Orfelius, they're falling behind, but they're just not getting that far. Like, they're falling behind, they're dealing some damage, but still falling behind economically. They're not getting rid of the southeast, which is really becoming a thorn in their side, especially as these defenders get rid of Orfelius' metal extractors, and the metal extractors over here, which could be gotten rid of in the commander as well, are not touched, especially given there are more than enough Scorchers to do so. I'm just kind of surprised Orfelius is not dealing with that, because they should be. Like, that's becoming increasingly problematic for them. Like, SnuggleBass can attack from there. They could probably build an Athena or build a proxy factory. There's a lot of things they can do with the commander up front. Not to mention, they just have a path they can take that pretty much is undefended. Like, basically down here is undefended. Well, down here up the cliff around. But yeah, it's undefended. There's nothing that can be done because there's the friendlies there. Like, SnuggleBass has got a beachhead set up in the southeast. And there's nothing Orfelius has done to deal with it. They could do something, they just haven't. Although, admittedly, the window is closing. And that's not really working. I don't know. I don't know. This is just getting troubles from Orfelius. They're still going for the... I mean, the Scorchers are kind of falling behind. The thing is, Scorchers and Ravagers are really fast. They're both really fast. So there's no reason to not switch over to Ravagers as far as speed goes. And, oh, the Crashers getting stuck. Crashers and Thug getting stuck with the the Ravagers. And that is not what they want. At this point, I think SnuggleBass is probably trying to kill the Crashers in order to be able to just use their air with impunity again. Although, I don't know. I don't even see any planes. I see... Oh, never mind. Phoenix, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Orfelius throwing the towel, getting hit too hard in the main base, and realizing there's not much that can be done about that. And that is game 1. Tandem Craters is weird. But I think it really just came down to SnuggleBass not dealing with what Orfelius... Orfelius not dealing with what SnuggleBass had. We're seeing that a lot, I'm finding, from Orfelius. We saw that in the Cold Snap map, too. Orfelius seems to not be very confident in their raiding abilities right now. And feels like their opponents are taking advantage of that. I really feel like the opponents are taking advantage of that because it was... like that opening in the southeast was there. And the Cold Snap game, there were openings that could have been there. Raiding just wasn't done. And that's something I'm noticing that Orfelius is not doing. I feel like Orfelius is getting too hard on themselves, too down on themselves, and not even thinking they can, and I think it's stopping them. I think they're just stopping themselves from doing what they can do. Although, admittedly, also forgetting to keep the build on repeat is also not helping. But yeah, the point is, there's been very little raiding from Orfelius. Occasionally there's been some, but it feels like it's just been... They've been trying to slow push Assault, which works fine in small maps, but in larger maps, usually kind of falls apart because your opponent can just go around you, and it doesn't matter. Anyway, moving on to Icy Shell, which is the map I was kind of hoping that we'd see Orfelius play on earlier, because I'm pretty sure this will work out fine. I'm pretty sure Orfelius will have a much easier time dealing with this than they did with Cold Snap. But honestly, I don't know. I think it will, though. I think that, given the way Orfelius has been playing, Icy Shell is not a bad map. The reason I don't know is because it is an open, flat map, and there's a lot of ways around it. So while Orfelius' current style of play, which seems to be a bit more focused on trying to push, is definitely strong in regard, I don't know if it's necessarily the best style of play, given that this map is not really one with a good choke point setup that would allow for that to be super effective. Huh. So yeah, anyway, I think... And for anyone talking about repeat build, like, okay, the thing with repeat build, yeah, it's got its place, and not everyone uses it, especially some of the old hat players don't use it because it's just... It's useful, but it can interfere with your other construction, and while you don't have the blockage that you have in RTS games with more discrete spending, StarCraft, for instance, actually most RTS games have discrete spending, other than Command & Conquer and Total Annihilation, but the thing is, while you don't have that explicit block, you're still kind of limited. The amount of time it takes to build something is still limited by your available metal, which limits your available build power, which means that if you're not building stuff in the factory and you're building your economy, for instance, that's actually more efficient, potentially, if you're not going to get attacked. The problem, however, is that most of the time, it's worth doing repeat build, and if you don't do repeat build, and you also don't remember to go back to your factory regularly, and Orfelius is using repeat build. Oh, no, he's not. What the heck? Or they're not. But yeah, if you use repeat build, you don't have to jump back to the factory all the time. If you don't use repeat build, yeah, that can work out better in like 5% of the cases, but the entire time you have to make sure to go back to the factory efficiently in order to do it. Whereas you could just not do that and have repeat build on and not have to worry about it. But it looks like Orfelius going for a Scorcher Commander dive. This is not going to be effective. There are 2 Scorchers defending. If another backup Scorcher comes in, which Orfelius is not building, but if another one were to come in, that would probably help. Probably do the trick. But that's not enough, and the Scorchers getting way too focused on the factory. Not focused enough on the other Scorchers. I think we're going to see GG right now. Nope, not going to see that. Okay. That's a little surprising. I really expected to see a GG right there because it felt like Orfelius was just going for that one attack. And that was their one hope, was to blow up SnuggleBass's commander out of the gate and then move on to game 3. But I don't know. that might not have been it. Clearly, it wasn't entirely their plan because they're still playing. It's just, I don't know. What's, like, if Orfelius had built a couple more Scorchers just behind everything else, then, I don't know, they would have been better off, probably. Just what I'm thinking is that they're also not building energy, so yeah, they're building more metal, and yes, they use that metal to build their economy, which is a good thing, but they don't have any energy to build the economy with. Their energy income is one wind generator, that's it. They're having more coming, but at this point, SnuggleBass is way ahead. 20 metal per second, although part of that's reclaim, half of that's reclaim, actually. 16 energy per second, which is no reclaim, that's all raw, so that's really strong. SnuggleBass getting a good economic start. Got a bit of damage early on, but now Orfelius can't really attack that hard. I'm a bit surprised Orfelius is going for pure Scorcher. I would expect they would have gone pure Slasher just because that's kind of been in their style. They've been trying to just do this hard, slow push, and that's what Slashers do well. But we're seeing Scorchers instead. Oh, right, Google probably pointing out priority is a thing. Yes, priority is a thing. And it's generally a good idea to have your factory in low priority. Like, as a rule, that's a good thing to do. There are occasionally situations, although with your factory in low priority, I think the amount of situations where it's worth not having the factory build anything or worth really finagling with it drops to like 1 or 2% from 5%. So it's already going from a relatively small amount, like 1 in 20 to like 1 in 50 to 1 in 100. There are very few instances where it's worth a huge amount to be that finicky about your construction. Occasionally, it's worth it. Occasionally, that small amount is the difference between victory and defeat. But the big amount of not building at all is defeat, usually, more often than not. Okay, Orfelius is probably... people are thinking Orfelius might be throwing the match. I don't think so. I think Orfelius is trying what they can. It's just that they're trying to do it quickly because they don't have a huge amount of time. Because they have to leave fairly soon. So I guess they're just trying to do their best, but also be quick about it. What are they going for the commander? Riot Cannon on Orfelius' commander, and where is SnuggleBass' commander? Over to the center. Already got the center expansion. Riot Cannon field radar. Building another radar. That's a little redundant, but okay. Actually, that's position. Yeah, SnuggleBass basically has radar coverage of everything Orfelius has. And this center metal extractor, that is a huge deal. That is a massive deal. That's one of the reasons why people were saying right at the start, light vehicles are bad, because that's a huge deal. You want this, that's 5 metal per second. That's 2.5 metal extractors of the rest of the map. Actually, close to 3 metal extractors of the rest of the map. And you can overdrive it. It's great. It is a wonderful thing. But yeah, that's what SnuggleBass went for, and Orfelius did not. Orfelius does actually have a really good opportunity to kill SnuggleBass' commander right now. Which would actually be very effective, because that would stop SnuggleBass from expanding up front. But no, instead of Orfelius not going for that, does Orfelius even know? Well, they know something's there. They don't know that the commander's there. I think if Orfelius knew the commander was there, they'd probably go for it. But I guess they figure, oh, there's defenders. I don't want to approach the defender nest. Yeah, it's just that frontal assault construction like this, that's power. That's a lot of power. It's build power. But more than that, it's build power that actually has some defensiveness to it. What I mentioned before, it's come up a lot. The commander, yeah, you don't lose the game for having the commander die, but you do lose the ability to build with impunity on the front lines. And that's a big thing to lose. Now, unfortunately, Orfelius kind of out of position. SnuggleBass taking advantage of Orfelius' everything, and Orfelius' entire army moving out of position. But at this point, it's kind of turning around. And we have plasma artillery? Yeah, plasma artillery for both sides, actually. Which is probably going to be relatively effective. The Slasher's coming in, though, and Orfelius' commander needs to retreat. Scorchers could probably rush in and kill the Slashers, though. But it's one of those things, it really is one of those cases where Orfelius is just thinking, okay, I don't have radar, here there be dragons. Very common thing in RTS, if you don't know what's there, it's easy to assume that there's everything there. And in all honesty, Orfelius is behind economically, so that's not an unsafe assumption. There is a lot more there than Orfelius has. Although, a lot less than I'm sure Orfelius expects, being that a lot has died. SnuggleBass moved in with about half a dozen Scorchers, and they all died. And that's not really been replenished too much. We're seeing a switch to Ravagers. And the Ravagers are, they're good. Don't get me wrong, they are good. It's just that they're also expensive. So not a lot has been replenished. The SnuggleBass's commander no longer really vulnerable. They're out of the woods. But still, Orfelius going around the side for some additional raiding, trying to get rid of some stuff. Definitely fixing one of the problems they had earlier, which was lack of raiding. Definitely going for a lot more raiding now, which is an appropriate response. And it's also pulling SnuggleBass's forces away from the front line. And their commander, the only reason their commander is there is basically because it can be. And nice shot there. Artillerying out the center expansion while also tearing apart the southeast expansions. One Lotus will kill a Scorcher, maybe. No, not even one Scorcher. Oh, no, did one weakened Scorcher. But yeah, this entire southeast is gone. The Mason's gone, so that's going to take even longer to rebuild. As I've been saying before, you get rid of a worker, you buy yourself about half minute to a minute, which is a decent amount of time. And Orfelius also taking the center expansion. Orfelius taking a lot of ground here. I wouldn't necessarily say they're turning it around yet, but they're on the path. They're definitely on the right track. It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle still. I mean, the one thing is SnuggleBass did switch to Ravagers, so the weight of SnuggleBass's army has increased. Its ability to respond in different locations has decreased as a result, and the Scorchers, I'd say, are a pretty good counter. Not the best counter. Ravagers are typically best countered by other Ravagers, but the Scorchers will do okay. There are no levelers in this group. Surprisingly, actually, there usually are. Ravager leveler is typically very strong because it does mean Scorchers can't just rush in and heat ray all the Ravagers to death. But the thing, of course, the Ravagers are tanky as anything, so it's very difficult to get through them. This is why Ravagers are typically the best thing against Ravagers, because Scorchers simply do not have the survivability. Still, good use of artillery. The Ravagers are all clumped up. That helps. And another Ravager down. I mean, the thing is, of course, Scorchers are about half the cost of Ravagers. Ravagers are 250 each, Scorchers are 130 each. So if 2 Scorchers die to a single Ravager, that's still even. If 3 Scorchers die to a Plasma Artillery, though, that is definitely just something taken. There was nothing going in there. Those Scorchers did not, unfortunately, manage to do a whole lot with their life. Their brief and explosively terminated life. At any rate, Orfelius having a bit of trouble holding that center, having a bit of trouble holding this. I'm surprised they're continuing to go for Scorchers. I guess they want to make sure that they have some firepower relatively quickly, rather than trying to get the Ravagers, which have more firepower, or more so, more health, but take a lot longer to get a critical mass of. But at this point, they've got enough metal. They can start building up. I mean, get these 2 Masons up there and start getting Ravagers, and that'll work beautifully. I mean, they could also, I suppose, get a bunch of Scorchers, but they're going to lose a lot in the process. And once again, Orfelius, I don't know why Orfelius is not building Caretakers. I mean, throwing in the towel now, but I just don't know why they weren't building Caretakers. I feel like Orfelius is really reluctant to use a lot of the facilities that the game has. Like, infinite queuing. Caretakers seem to be used on and off, but a lot of the time they're using workers. I mean, I realize workers are a bit cheaper and have a bit more value, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like Orfelius is over-optimizing. I feel like that's been the problem, is they've been trying to get all the little things, like all the micro-optimizations, but in the process, they're missing the big mistakes that are killing them, that are losing them games. But they're so focused, they're laser focused on tiny little things of making the most out of every single unit being built and the factory production, and to a lesser extent, making the most of workers as opposed to caretakers, although caretakers have been used somewhat. But still, like, I feel like they're trying so hard to be super efficient in the small ways and missing the ways they're not being efficient in the big ways, because once again, we have 1,000 metal excess. It's like 1,000 metal every 10 minutes, it seems, roughly, or maybe a little more than that. It actually increases exponentially from the looks of it. At this point, though, metal produced was even lower too, but yeah, that's just the impression I'm getting. And that's a very tempting thing. Like, trying to optimize the small things, that's, like, there's an expression for that. Penny saved, pound foolish. That is the expression for getting so focused on tiny things, you're forgetting about all the big things that are much more important that you have to sort out properly first before the tiny things become relevant. And at this point, Orfelius, Orfelius can do the big things. I feel like they're just so worried about the small things, they're missing the big things. And in practice, that's fine, because if you want to get good at the small things, you'll probably miss a few of the big things, but then afterwards, once you get good at both, then you're even stronger. In a tournament, though, you always want to go with the thing that's most reliable, and that is focusing on the big things. Leave the micro optimizations to when you're absolutely sure you have the big stuff completely sorted out. Anyway, that's 2-0, so we're moving on to grand finals. And that'll be SnuggleBass versus Google Frog again. Though at this point, if Google Frog wins, I don't know, like, okay, the way it's supposed to happen is that if Google Frog wins 2-0, or not 2-0, Google Frog wins, Google Frog wins. That's just how it goes. If SnuggleBass wins, then we move on to a second grand finals round, and then it's either player's game. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen, or what. But it looks like both SnuggleBass and Google Frog are tired. Right now in Australia, it's like 1 in the morning, so I can't blame them. It's like, this is kind of... I'm surprised, like, all but one player... Orfelius, I believe, is Polish. I'm going to double check that. That looks like a Polish flag. The country code is PL, so yeah. Orfelius is Polish. The other 3 are Australian. As is the tournament organizer. So... Or at least tournament organizer is living in Australia. So the tournament right now is Australians and Australians. Because 0K is the game of Australians. That's kind of been the case for a while. It was actually, I think, the game of Germans too for a while, but I don't know, not as many German players. Actually, the really strong players were, like, Golda was, or still is, Swedish. Anarkid is Estonian. Actually, Anarkid and Lori are both, I believe, Estonian. And then there's quite a few players like Austria, Germany, and all around there that are relatively strong. And UK, actually. The UK is really strong. Quite a few relatively strong American players, but the tournament timing means it's rather difficult for them to be represented. Capricious is actually a very up-and-coming American player who slept in. Yeah. Kind of sucks, but they did sleep in. Anyhow, this is the last game. This is the grand finals. Or apparently it is. At least the first grand finals. Not sure how this is going to go. Yeah, this is... I mean, okay, this has kind of been a weird tournament. I think that the Swiss is a bit weird. I feel like maybe for future tournaments, which I realize will lengthen the thing further, I don't know, maybe for future tournaments, we should just do a thing where it's like every week there's a Swiss, like a 5-round Swiss, and then after like 5 or 6 weeks, we have a top 8 of the 5-round Swiss tournaments, and then that top 8 is the big tournament. I feel like that's probably a better way to go almost, except for the fact that it's really hard to organize. That's the organizational problem is the problem. It's really just those top 8 players, as long as the top, because you don't have to be there every week for the Swisses. It's just if you aren't, you probably won't get top 8. But if you are, then you're more likely to. It'll probably help out overall. Be more of a league play type thing. Whereas with this setup, I can see the value of it, but it seems like there are some issues. I mean, having top 8, where it's like the 5 to 8 is losers bracket, like starts in the losers bracket, and 1 to 4 starts in winners bracket, that might work without increasing the time too much. Like, it would still increase the time a little bit, but not as much. It would just be a couple extra losers rounds, which would actually increase the time by probably about an hour or so. So it's still potentially problematic. Oh. Wait, are we not doing it? I don't know what's going on. Oh, okay, so apparently we're gonna have a forfeiture. So I think SnuggleBass is... Yeah, SnuggleBass is forfeited. Google Frog wins! Congratulations, Google Frog. Admittedly, Google Frog earned that. I mean, they beat the player who was undefeated during the Swiss round. And they were undefeated, or they had 1 round they lost for the rest of it out of 5 matches played. So yeah, well done, Google Frog. SnuggleBass, good job in 2nd place, and Orfelius, good job in 3rd place. You are not that bad. Quit saying you're bad. Seriously. You got 3rd place in the tournament, which admittedly, there was some weirdness in the way that the bracket standings all worked out, or the Swiss standings all worked out, and I kind of feel like it would have been uncontested. Like, no one would have argued down to the 8th spot in this particular case, but I could see in future there might be problems. But yeah, no one would have argued down to rank 8 if it had been like Icons through North Challenge in the losers bracket and Orfelius Acronym in the winners bracket. That probably would have been okay. Definitely would have been okay if they were all in winners bracket, but that would have taken a bit longer. But yeah. Experiments. Worth thinking about. I don't know. I guess it's worth a shot. I mean, the Swiss makes sense, because the Swiss is all about having players be able to play for several matches. The downside, of course, being that it lasts a bit longer. It adds an extra 2.5 hours on top of whatever bracket's done, so it means the brackets are often smaller, which means you get these weird disputes about who's in the bracket at the 4th place level. And then it causes weirdness because whoever gets in might be because they won out of a best of 1 in the Swiss, because best of 1 is what the Swiss is in order to keep it relatively sane for time, and that means cheese tends to rule, and that's, like, Felitas is kind of annoyed by that, which I can't say I'm surprised. And also, like, 3 and 2, I don't know. 3 and 2 is pretty strong, all things considered. So, not sure to say that. At any rate, it'll be things to think about, but I guess that worked out okay. I mean, it was kind of a weird tournament. Started late, and then grand finals was forfeiture, so not the most hype thing in the world, I'm afraid, but I still think that while it may not have ended in the most climactic way possible, it was definitely an exciting tournament. A lot of cool matches. Despite the organizational issues early on, I think it sorted itself out, smoothed out, and there were a lot of really cool matches. Like, my favorite at this point was probably... What would be my favorite right now? I feel like something in the SnuggleBass Orfelius series was really cool. But yeah, this is definitely a interesting tournament. I mean, it was played well, but yeah, then people got tired in the end and just kind of fell apart. Gonna have to really think about this organizationally. Now that we've had a tournament that's actually had a full 5 rounds of Swiss, and was only top 4, and had the full bracket, and lasted about 7, and that was only 6 hours too. So having it last longer would probably be infeasible. Yeah, I almost feel like it would be worth it to have some kind of league system, where it's just every week there's a Swiss, but also give me more things to cast that aren't just replays on Saturdays. But it's like every weekend there's a Swiss, and the Swiss lasts for 3 hours, and then it's just whatever points you get, they are logged into a larger points book, and then whoever gets the most points, the top 8 players with the most points, compete in 8. Maybe all in winners, maybe bottom 4 in losers, top 4 in winners, not sure, but either way, have that double elimination, and then that's the tournament. That's this big tournament, because if it's only 8 people, that'll last about 4 or 5 hours, which is not unreasonable. And then you end up having a relatively exciting tournament of all the people who did well over the course of several weeks of Swiss. You don't have this weird argument of, how do I Swiss into brackets? Because it's kind of hard to do that. The cleanest way is double elim pools into double elim brackets, but we don't have enough to actually have pools. Like if it was, say, well, a fighting game tournament, for instance, where you have pools a lot of the time, this would be a pool. This would be one pool, but then you'd have the winner and loser, like the person who got out of winners and the person who won in the losers bracket, moving on to the final bracket, but there aren't enough people to have a final bracket of more than 2 at that point. So you wouldn't have pools, you just have one double elim tournament, which with this many players would be fine. For time, it's just, of course, double elim then causes a lot of people to basically play 3 matches and that's it. 3 or 4 matches, done. And it kind of sucks to go 0-2, whereas with Swiss, it's, okay, admittedly you could go 0-5, but it's not as bad, I guess. Or in this case, 0-3, but whatever. It's like 0-3, 0-4, or 5. It's just, you can go even worse theoretically, but you get to play more matches. You don't get eliminated. But yeah, so I think Swiss League into after 6 months or so, or 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks or so, we have a top 8 into a tournament of the league play. I think that'll be a lot more interesting. Granted, there also are probably scheduling problems, and we have to possibly change when the timing is, because I don't want to get up at 3 in the morning every morning. I would like to cast the Swiss, but I don't want to have to get up that early every morning. I think probably, given it be only 3 hours, it would work fine if it was like 1 p.m. UTC, I think, for most people. Be a bit early for Australian players. Maybe 2 p.m. UTC? And that would be, I think, reasonable for everybody. Anyway, worth thinking about later. For now, that's about it. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Except for the beginning, I enjoyed that a lot. The beginning was a bit rough, but so it goes. We'll probably get that better organized next time. But yeah, so thanks again for watching, and have a good night, everyone.